Hello and welcome to day 2. I will be your host for today's program. My name is Rachel McCabe and I am the Program and Administrative Associate at Intersections International. Welcome back to our event, Keep the Faith, Hope and Healing, a global perspective on women's voices. Yesterday, we heard from a dynamic group of female leaders and activists from Africa, North America, and Asia. We had wonderful performances, and we heard from our participants on how women are remaining resilient during the COVID pandemic. Today, we will hear from another group of diverse and intergenerational women. Once again, today's event will be recorded. We are also live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Please be sure to ask all questions using the Q&A box and leave any comments you may have in the chat. We hope you enjoyed today's program. It is my pleasure to welcome our Chief Outreach Officer and Global Impact Program Manager, Marcia Fingel.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to all of you joining us from regions around our world. My name is Marcia Fingel, and I'm the Chief Outreach Officer and Global Impact Program Manager for Intersections International. Thank you. Thank you all for returning for day 2 of Keep the Faith, Hope and Healing, a global perspective on women's voices. Yesterday, we had a very full and insightful, edifying program with women leaders, artists, and activists from Kenya, Nigeria, the United Kingdom, Bangladesh, Oman, Myanmar, so many places. Intersections is proud to partner with the Amana Centre and FELM on this virtual conference, amplifying the voices of global women for this very moment of COVID-19. At Intersections, we have 2 key programs, Believe Out Loud and Global Peacemaking. Believe Out Loud is Intersections' LGBT-focused social justice program with a global following of over 200,000 people. Believe Out Loud is the largest non-denominational community of LGBT people of faith and their allies in the world. On our online platforms and through virtual and in-person events, Believe Out Loud helps reconcile LGBT life and identity with faith and religion. Among the many resources we provide, our digital Believe Out Loud worship services support our audience by creating sacred spaces beyond borders, beyond boundaries that center LGBT people and affirm their connection to the divine. In global peacemaking, we seek to achieve peace by first meeting urgent needs. As we advocate for and support marginalized communities at home and around the globe, we see the value of convening diverse faith groups and community leaders, breaking through barriers of difference, dispelling stereotypes and false narratives, while cultivating mutual understanding, embracing cooperation, reconciliation, and employing diplomacy in ways that bring marked change. Our consultative status with the United Nations has allowed us to more fully engage with many global partners. Our amplification granting supports a multitude of local and global nonprofits with seed grants in furtherance of their work in the world. This is indeed the ministry of intersections, the fifth ministry of the Collegiate Church of New York. We are so pleased to be part of the team convening today's gathering as we come together in our various faith traditions to speak boldly into this moment we're all experiencing as a world community. We look forward to more spirited and engaging exchanges today with tangible ways of building new connections and new partnerships going forward. Thank you, and enjoy today's program.
Hi, my name is Bridget Ganguly. I am currently on the board of the Amana Centre and have been honored to serve in this capacity since 2018. Prior to this, I worked as the Director of Administration at the Amana Centre for over a decade and was also actively involved with various social outreach causes pertaining to low-income workers. On behalf of the Amana Centre, a very warm welcome to the second day of the conference being organized on hope and healing. Personally, knowing the ethos of the center, both historically and from the content of the current programs being offered, I find the topics for this conference and the multicultural participation exciting and uplifting. When the American mission started in Oman over 100 years ago, hope, empowerment through education, and healing through medical assistance to the people of Oman were offered to the people of this great land. This in turn led to meaningful and long-standing relationships and is the foundation of what Amana Centre has been built on. Over the 3 decades that I have been in Oman, I have witnessed the empowerment of Omani women, including representation in parliament. Now, as we deal with the challenges of the current pandemic, which has impacted millions of people around the world, particularly women and the less fortunate, we know that hope and healing are the need of the hour. Enjoy today's sessions and stay blessed. Thank you.
I will lift up mine eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He said, He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. The Lord that keepeth thee, He will not slumber nor sleep. No, the Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand, upon thy right hand. No, the sun not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. He shall preserve my soul, even forevermore. No, the sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. He shall preserve my soul, even forevermore.
Good morning, global friends. It is my great pleasure and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker today, as she brings words of encouragement, hope, and healing to this diverse, engaged, and engaging group. The Reverend Dr. Cheryl Dudley is the Regional Executive Minister of the American Baptist Churches of Metropolitan New York, supporting congregations, clergy, and lay leaders in celebration, in COVID-19 response, in worship and faith, and in public mission. Dr. Dudley's is a prophetic voice that brings us wisdom, gentleness, and insight.
And when we know that we work at the pleasure of the Good Shepherd, we know we're not alone.
She is a past president of the Baptist Peace Fellowship of North America, board chair of Inspire Action USA, a faith-based humanitarian response organization, and serves as a member of the board of Flemister Housing Development Fund Corporation. An Afro-frontierist raised in Phoenix, Arizona, Dr. Dudley has earned degrees from Pomona College, Princeton Theological Seminary, and McCormick Theological Seminary. She has been a beacon of hope and light through these long months of pandemic, writing and publishing a powerful and poignant series of daily prayers. Her willingness to bring us into a collective prayer closet has helped hundreds still the noise of our hearts. Digitally, virtually, electronically, through her prayers, we hear and feel a divine presence in the midst of turmoil, loss, grief, and confusion. Dr. Dudley helps us make sense of a world when it feels particularly senseless. I am delighted to call her my mentor and dear friend. Let me introduce to some and reacquaint others with the Reverend Dr. Cheryl F. Dudley.
Good morning. I pray and trust that the technology icons are working for us this morning. To my dear, dear friend, the Reverend Julie Johnson Staples, JD. What a wonderful introduction. Wow, that's going to be hard to live into, but I dearly and preciously appreciate you for your honoring me with such an extravagant grace of introduction. Thank you. It is my honor to address this group of beautiful souls that are gathered here today. And so I greet you today with joy. I'm continuing to my dear friend, the Reverend Julie Johnson Staples. Your brilliance, your clarity, your pastoral heart imagined and brought this International Women's Conference into being. I honor you. God honors you. The community of international women of faith honor you. We're grateful to God for you. To Marcia Fingel, thank you so much for your direction and your insight and your energy that you brought to making this event happen. To all those who've had a part in putting this wonderful conference together, I was so glad to be able to share as a participant yesterday. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's an honor to be in your presence, and I thank you for the invitation. Being led today for my remarks to sacred writings found in Hebrew as well as Christian sacred text, Isaiah 40. There's a familiar verse that is the culminating verse of the chapter, verse 31, that says, "But they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." I think you might agree with me hearing those words again today, that the beautiful, soaring, poetic phrases in those 5 stanzas are so loaded with vivid imagery. They're muscular words. They're not just muscular, but they're insightful and poignant words directed to those who would believe, but are losing their strength, to give them encouragement because they had endured so much. And understandably, they were growing weary in waiting. The 31st verse begins with a transitional word, a connector, one that connects one thought to another, between what has happened and what could happen next to those who remained faithful and wait. That word is but. I have a colleague that I call a but person, 1 T. I always wait for the but from him, which is the bridge to what he really needs to tell me. In his reports or accounts, I may ask him something and he begins with a rosy picture in relation to the question that I have asked. For example, if I'm asking him what his impression is of a particular person's expertise in their field or their experience, how they're regarded by colleagues, etc., he'll generally begin with, "Oh, they have great XYZ experience. They've done this. They're in the top 10 of whatever field." And then he'll pause and say, "But they got into some trouble a while back." And I'll say, "What kind of trouble?" And he'll go on to explain some alarming situation that I wish he had began with in the first place, and then filled in his resume with all the things that this person had accomplished well. His pattern of buts have been frequent enough that I have said to him, "Please just go to the but." And he'll chuckle and say, "Well, I don't like to report the bad stuff first, so I like to start with the good before getting to my reservations about something." In the case of Isaiah 40, the bad stuff happens in the beginning, as recorded in 1st Isaiah chapters 1 through 39. A lot went down. Now, I'm not doing Bible study today, but this whole book and chapter are deliciously worthy of study. And I might suggest that maybe the Reverend Julie Johnson Staples, who's a lover of scripture, as she indicated yesterday, and a biblical scholar that renowned preachers often consult, could be talked into leading those who are interested in a biblical reflection of Isaiah or another prophet in context, and because of their timelessness, find a connection to now. I'm just saying. But up to the point in the 40th chapter that I just referenced, the people there had been awaiting a while. Waiting is difficult for many of us to do. The time we spend waiting can seem interminable. Even short waits can feel tortuously long to the impatient me. But waiting is a part of life. We wait in lines, especially in COVID, 6 feet apart. We wait for the subway or the bus to come and for another to come that's not quite as crowded. We wait to be led into social platform rooms like Zoom for conferences or doctor's offices. We wait to hear back from someone. We wait for unpleasant things to end, like a root canal, 2020, the US presidential election. And we wait for a sign of God's favor. There are many, many things we wait for that we must face, require time, that we don't necessarily want to allot. But it requires our disposition of hope and faith that that which we are waiting for in line will come to fruition because of our consistency. So we're waiting for the COVID-19 pandemic and its various strains and surges to end, right? Some have been waiting for something that seems more like they were used to experiencing, being quote unquote normal, to return. And others are waiting for something better than what they experienced before to emerge. Not for something to become great again, but waiting for something to truly, magnanimously, and inclusively be great again. Great for the first time. Since the intent of Eden at creation was corrupted. And so since the first quarter of this year, depending on where you find yourself in the world, we have been waiting and waiting through the global tidal wave caused by COVID-19 and its adjacent social justice riptides for about 300 days. This is longer than the whole world is used to waiting for together for a very long time, except for world wars. And so by the time these words recorded in Isaiah come, with its rapturous language, the people for whom it was intended have been waiting about 160 years. We hope the waiting in this season of disease and dis-ease won't last nearly that long for us. Then the waiting will become the task and call for our descendants, even as it became a reality for their descendants, for the original audience. And so if we must wait, and it does appear that we must, the world and the kingdom are best served by waiting in ways that strengthen, encourage, and give us hope. Give us hope personally, and give the communities of which we are a part, which is the globe, hope. Amen. Although waiting is a part of the human experience, waiting doesn't necessarily mean that while we are doing it, that we're standing still. We've found that out over the last several months of this year. But I'm learning this lesson anew from my new dog that has a prophetic name, Micah. When I ask Micah to wait quietly, sometimes he lays down quietly. Other times he does a jig and he jumps for joy. He says, I'm waiting, I'm waiting. I don't always appreciate the latter, but while we wait, we might do so in ways that not all will appreciate or understand that we are waiting. We can wait while singing praises to God, while beating the drum, like Rabbi Eisenstadt said, while dancing, like Miriam and Micah, the dog. We certainly can pray and do pray while waiting. Praying is embodied conversation with God, not a monologue of complaints, but a waiting to hear God's voice speaking to our hearts. We also find hope and healing, at least I know I do, in writing while waiting. We also wait by taking notice of that which is around us, what others need, nurturing one another in community, like now, and reaching out to those who have no community of faith to claim. Most of the time, we don't have time to wait standing still, but must consider and practice other ways of waiting. As Rabbi said again yesterday, Miriam didn't even have time to wait for the bread to rise. But waiting is our plight and our test, though how we do it becomes our witness and our legacy. Sometimes waiting involves activity, like this conference happening in different form than what was first imagined. Everything doesn't come to a screeching halt in our waiting, but our lives continue in different forms, where we learn to eat different bread that is ready for the journey. Take a sip. Henri Nouwen, a prolific Christian writer who often wrote short vignettes that were compiled into books, documented a year in his life in a book called Bread for the Journey. There, Nouwen testified that the experience and content of the book that was created through that year became the credo for his life. In it, he speaks of many things, but he speaks of waiting in the November 19 to 21 section of the books, where he says, waiting patiently is suffering through the present moment, yet tasting it to the full, and letting the seeds that are sown in the ground in which we stand grow into strong plants. The word wait by biblical translators is nuanced a few ways. In some translations, the word is defined a bit in the interpretation by saying to wait is to hope in, or to wait is to trust as we keep waiting. So we're trusting and waiting together. So waiting then is the strength or the discipline, if you will, of those who would dare hope in God. For the people for whom the passage was historically written, and through the ages, when it has been read by the faithful, hope is found waiting with and for God. As we're waiting for God, God is with us. It's a paradox. Even in these long, dreary seasons, God is with us as we wait for God's next move for us. God is with us as we wait for God. And the consequence or the outcome of waiting for and with God is renewed or new strength. This is what the third, fourth, and fifth stanzas in Isaiah 40:31 tells us. Strength is required in order to mount up with wings like eagles, in order to run and not grow weary, and in order to walk and not faint. Flying, running, and walking means that we have strength and that we're not just surviving our lives, but we're thriving. A thriver takes the wings of an eagle, mounts up. A thriver runs and isn't weary. A thriver walks and doesn't faint. As I read these phrases again, it struck me that they're not lined up in logical order. Generally, we're taught that we have to walk before we can run. And if any flying is going to be happening, then the walking and running needs to happen first. How can you start with flying and then move to running and then walking? It seems as if it's in the opposite order than what is logical. But we find that holy teachings are often counterintuitive, causing us to see and understand things in a different way, understand them in the way that God understands them. In February of this year, the last trip I took before the travel shut down, I went to the United Arab Emirates with my goddaughter, who invited me to join her because her MBA cohort was going there and they would be engaged together in a learning excursion. And she said, Godmother, I have this wonderful room. You can come. You've never been there before. I'm sure you would enjoy it. And I at first said, no, I don't need to go there. And then I thought about it. And I said, why not? And I remembered too that I had a friend who now lived in the region. And so I WhatsApped her and asked her, how far are you from Abu Dhabi? And she said, please come. I would love to host you. And so I went as a sightseer. And I was hosted by my beautiful friend. And I imagined too that it would prepare me for our gathering in Oman in April. My friend, who was a quintessential hostess, took me to some absolutely breathtakingly spectacular places. One of the places she took me to was the tallest freestanding structure in the world, the Burj Khalifa. We had lunch there. And she said, they're going to charge you to go to the top of the Burj, and so we might as well enjoy it with a meal. So from atop of that towering 2,716-foot structure, which is 1,000 feet taller than the World Trade Center in New York City, I had the courage to look out. And as I looked out, I believed I could see the horizon, the curve of the horizon that was ironically made clear by the dust that rose up from the desert below. And from that height, I could see buildings that were shorter than the Burj, peeking through the clouds below. The sky looked like a dome, and it had a dizzying effect on me. I was told by my friend, and it was confirmed by the restaurateur, that the best view was from the ladies' room in their restaurant. So I went to that ladies' room and peered out to the spectacular view and was amazed. I stayed there as long as I could before going back and enjoying the view from another vantage point. My host confessed that her husband didn't like looking out, and I could understand that because of the effect of the elevation. The lateral and vertical expression of the sky with its unfilled spaces was hard to look at for too long. I wish I had had the courage to keep looking and looking and looking and imagining. Absent from an actual Burj or even Mount Everest, which was just reported as being actually 2 feet taller than earlier projected, God urges us to linger and to soar at higher places and higher planes at times so that we can take in the larger picture metaphorically in our hearts and in our spirits. And when we return to ground level and to our experience of the world, that vision that we experience will direct our perspectives and our work. But we must dare to imagine and to see as far as the eye can take us, and then beyond. It'll take us through the mundane that drives us from day to day. We need to allow our hearts and our minds and our spirits to go to those higher places and to go with God as on wings, as eagles, riding God's pinions. And then the sequence makes sense to me. After having ridden on the pinions and having the bigger view, then we can come down to lower planes and hit the ground running after having seen, to determine what a healthy pace is as we put our feet on the ground and keep walking. I said this before and I'll say it again. God would not have us just survive, but God wants us to thrive, to soar, to run, and healthily walk, and to have the strength to do it. It's hard to remember sometimes what we see in those lofty places. I like writing things down. I created a list, actually, of 24 things to help me survive in the early days of the pandemic, late March. I said, I need some litmus tests. And it had some great things on it, like acknowledging there's a real enemy out there threatening your life. Remember to go to bed early, fluff the pillow, straighten the covers, and sleep. But it's time to create a new list, a blueprint toward a way of fulfilling God's greatest intentions for you, for me. As we imagine ourselves soaring on the wings of eagles after we get through this. And great things doesn't necessarily mean becoming like the new General Secretary of the World Council of Churches that Dr. Agnes Aboom mentioned yesterday, but it could be for you. But it means to live in fulfillment of the desire in your heart that God has planted. I think you know what it is. And if you don't, as we wait, I believe it will reveal itself. Listen to God speaking to you. God has a way of speaking to me sometimes in my own voice. That great thing could simply be something like saying, I love you in earnest to one who has never felt those words before. So then we wait with expectation and hope, not just waiting for the waiting to be over, but we wait through for the right movements of the current, perfect for taking flight, soaring high, pushing past the facade of ego or insecurity. We do not want ourselves to embody those characteristics we critique and sometimes despise in others. But we want to ride the current to the purpose and meaning God has given each of our lives, and to enjoy the air there as God fills our tanks and recharges our batteries and makes us strong. And don't be like I was on the Burj. Linger there, looking out, unafraid. And when the flight is over, we come down to the ground. We will hit the ground running and not grow weary and continue to walk and not faint. May God bless and renew our strength then as we wait. Amen.
Thank you so much to the Reverend Dr. Cheryl Dudley for that wonderful keynote address. Up next, we will be hearing from a series of presentations representing the Middle East, South America, and Europe. First, we will hear from Zainab Al-Samak in Kuwait. She's working in international relations and women's advocacy. Next, we will hear from Suha Nicer, originally from Palestine, and she's currently working as a social worker and intercultural facilitator. Then we will hear from Annette John Dew, the founder of FACT, Family Awareness Consciousness Together. And finally, we will hear from Anya Fallenkamp, who is the founder of Faiths in Tune, an interfaith arts organization that is based in Germany.
Hello everyone and greetings from Kuwait. My name is Zainab Samak and I would like to thank Intersections International for this amazing opportunity, as I'm really honored and delighted to be a part of this conversation. I would like to start by briefly introducing myself. I'm Kuwaiti. I have a bachelor's degree in international relations from the American University of Kuwait and a master's degree in international law from SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. I currently work at the IMF regional office here in Kuwait, and at the same time I'm a research director at Malawi's List, which is a platform dedicated towards supporting women running for elected elected office positions, basically. And I would like to add up and say that the views that I'm gonna be expressing I apologize. The views that I'll be expressing here today, they are my own personal views. So, to me, the term hope or the word hope itself is a subjective term. We might see it in the dictionary with a definition, but I think in reality is defined by our experiences and our background. That's why it differs from a person to another. Each one of us has, or each community has a different perception of it. But at the same time, I think that we all can agree and say that hope is the light at the end of the tunnel. When we want to talk about hope in the context of Kuwait and where to find it, I would say we can find it among us, the people living in the community, in the Kuwaiti community itself, especially my generation, the millennials. We all have this sense of familiarity between us, even if we don't know each other. We can relate to each other in a way or another because all of us rally around this one idea, which is the desire to abolish barriers and overcome limitations in a society, to basically live in a society where social justice is the norm and coexistence is another norm. Our approaches might differ from a group to another, but all of us seek one final goal. We all have one end game, which is positive, inclusive change in our community. And we all believe, or I wouldn't say all, I would say many of us, or the majority of us, would believe that this can be done through civic engagement. So I can say that civic engagement, or the civil society in Kuwait, is where hope and faith in the idea of change is regenerated because of the way we collaborate within this sector. The last decade in Kuwait witnessed a really significant boom when it comes to initiative and NGOs in Kuwait, or the civic society in general, especially when it comes to women's rights. And I'll be referring to women's rights and female empowerment a lot because this is the sector that I'm most interested in and I'm active in, but that doesn't mean we do not have a diverse civil society in Kuwait. So basically with that boom, there was an emphasis on Article 29 in the Kuwaiti Constitution that calls for equality to all, basically. And so we have a theoretical legal framework that supports our desire and our goals of social justice and coexistence and equality. However, the practice, when it comes to practice, the practice is not that common. Sometimes it's limited to a certain segment of the society itself. So we utilize civic engagement as a way to heal from this injustice and pave the way toward change. We're witnessing the idea that we're witnessing a change. The change is slow, but it is there. And that observation is the fuel that heals us from the limitations that were and are imposed on us via the community that we live in, whether those limitations were because of a constructive norms, traditions, customs, and even sometimes legislations. So the change that we're witnessing over time, it's our fuel to actually push ourselves and push our ideas and be more vocal about it, and also to heal. So especially when it comes to female empowerment. And the moment we realize that civic engagement is the way for us to actually heal via asserting our objective and being vocal about it and putting ourselves out there and talking about it and doing something about it, is the moment that a lot of us were able to overcome our traumas, whether they're personal traumas or social traumas that were caused by pressure, whether it's peer pressure or family pressure. And because of that, we were able to push ourselves and seek self-actualization. And because of that view, through civic engagement, we were able to spread awareness through our community and regarding many issues. And one of them is female empowerment or women's rights. For example, one of the initiatives that come to mind is Abolish 153. Abolish 153 is seeking to abolish Article 153 that labels honor killing as a misdemeanor in the Kuwaiti Constitution. They've been on the ground for a couple of years now. They're very active, very active about their cause. However, they weren't able to abolish this article, but they were able to actually be one of the forces behind a really important legislation that was passed in Kuwait, which is the domestic violence legislation. So the majority of us believe in grassroots level movements as a way to cultivate a culture that believes in coexistence and social change. And that was apparent mainly with the outbreak with COVID-19, where many initiatives emerged, whether they were spreading awareness about issue or trying to provide tangible help in the form, for example, in the form of financial help to segment of the societies that were affected by the outbreak of COVID. They utilized social media like never before. And what helped is that COVID-19 was the reason why many rooted problem within Kuwait system emerged. So, and with self-isolating, people had the time to actually, and the courage to actually be vocal about their views. The success of the civic society in Kuwait, or it doesn't mean that we do not face challenges. We do face a lot of challenges. Some of them is that big portion of society still hold a racist or a sexist rhetoric, and they would like to throw all of the issues that emerge within societies on females or migrant workers. Some of the people in the society also, they do not comprehend or understand our message, and they basically accuse us of being westernized and trying to abolish the traditions that this society was based on. And some, they just simply don't care, and some, which is a really critical group, that they want to keep the status quo as it is, because in a way the current status quo is actually benefiting them. So I think at the end, I would say, to find the source of hope in the state of Kuwait, just simply look to our civic society in its all sectors. Our advocacy journey is what keeps us going, whether we're targeting women's rights or climate change. I think it is safe to say that the majority of us it's safe to say that for the majority of us, hope is a way to heal and pave the way towards a better future. And thank you.
My name is Soha, 28 years old, Palestinian, living in Berlin since 2017. I studied international relations and cultural diplomacy in Berlin and currently work as a social worker and an intercultural facilitator. As to the first question, I find hope in these difficult times in connecting with my loved ones, in talking about our emotions in a transparent way, in opening up about the difficulties we face, in practicing patience, and in embracing vulnerability. I think it is very important to express our frustration too. By staying in touch with my family members and my friends living in different countries, I get to see how we often have the same worries, fears, and needs. I think it's about solidarity and spreading the feeling that we are not alone in this. I remember a friend of mine once saying, humans got to survive because they shaped communities, and it is exactly why we will be able to survive in this pandemic. For the second question, I will be mainly talking about the Arab-speaking community in Berlin that make up, along with international friends, the majority of my social circles here. I don't think there is one individual way in which my social circle deals with the pandemic. While some prefer to stay at home and limit personal contact, others will still try to meet up personally with their friends. Some resort to spirituality or participate in webinars and online meetups. My current view of hope and healing taught me to appreciate the important things in life, to question many of the things I took for granted. It helped me to realize the importance of human relations, of mental health, and most importantly, to accept and embrace vulnerability. I find most challenging is the following paradox. In a time where human contact is essential, limiting the contact is equally important to save people's lives. For example, the current situation leads us to feel guilty about meeting our best friends or loved ones. Another example is trying to find the balance in my work between being there for my clients while always making sure that I respect the contact restrictions, which is in itself very tiring.
I'm Anna Jandu. I'm the Executive Director of Family Awareness, Consciousness, Togetherness. I'm also the mother of 2 adult children, and I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Curriverton. FACT is located in Guyana, South America, and more specifically in Region 6, East Berbice, Curriverton. We have been in operation for the past 20 years, and we have enriched many lives as we continue to work to improve the lives of the community. Our vision is to empower vulnerable families and communities for exceptional quality of life. Hope. I believe hope is deeply rooted in all religion and our faith. Growing up with my grandmother, I have learned so many things about faith and hope. See, my grandmother was a Christian, and she took care of actually 3 of my mother and 2 other aunts' children while they were working. So we were an extended family of 13 and more of us in one house. We learned to share very early, and this is a value that she embedded in us. We share. We did not look at what each mother brought, but whatever was there for us, all of us share. Our home was open to strangers, everyone you could think of in the community, neighbors, extended family, and we were Seventh-day Adventists. And every Sabbath you go to church, if there's a visitor from another church or even a family member, she would bring them home, and whatever we had to be shared equally so everyone could eat. Even some came for lodging. Many of our extended family from both sides, her side and her husband's side, lived with her. I can't remember every part of that house someone slept. When we were so many, if even we had to take a bed sheet or sleep in a chair, but there was space for everyone. She really taught us the good values and good morals, which I think has contributed to my being who I am today. One story about her, and I was involved, that is with me all the time, and I think contributed more so of me believing and trusting in God and His promises, is a story about a nephew of mine. His mother was at the training school in another region in our country. He was just 3 months old and leaving her care. I was 16 years at that time, just finished secondary school. I had to help her with the other siblings. She was a farmer. And the other siblings and grandchildren, I had to help her take care of my nephew. Sometimes the others would go to the farm with her. My nephew, when he was 6 months old, got very sick. She took him to the doctor, and the doctor said he would not live. My grandmother came home with him, and she looked at us, and I was more connected to him than all of the others because I was the person he was sleeping with, taking care of him when my grandmother wasn't there. She looked at all of us, and she looked at me, and she said, you know, doctor say he wouldn't live. And she said, this child is not going to die. This child is a blessed child. I remember vividly, she said, Jesus takes care of them. He's a little, he has his own angels taking care. He would not die. That night she sat in the rocking chair, rocking him, and this child was crying. And so I was crying and my grandmother. She said, don't cry, he's going to live. And she prayed. And when she was praying, she had asked me to repeat the prayer with her. This happened for 6 days, and as the days progressed, we saw him getting better. She did not cease to pray. She believed that he was a blessed child, that is what she said, and she believed that God will indeed bring him. And indeed, that miracle happened. He got better. On the 7th day, she took him back to the doctor. I went with her. I can remember clearly, she said, "Doctor, look, I bring the dead child for you." I was so embarrassed when she said that, but she said, "You know what? You're a doctor, but the greatest healer is the Almighty." And that stayed with me. My nephew is 44 years now. He will be 45 come December the 14th. He has his own family of 4 children. He's a God-fearing child, and he continues to love and trust God. And he's a community worker just like me. Only today I was speaking to him and he was saying, he calls me auntie. He said, "Auntie, we have a legacy, and that legacy is what was given to us by your grandmother and my great-grandmother." And he said that legacy is to help others, to look out for other people. And I listened to him and I thought, yes, indeed, it's a legacy that was handed down to us by your grandmother, because that is what she taught us. She taught us that anything is possible if you believe in God, that hope and healing can come to anyone if you trust God. She trusted God. She believed in his promises, and she trusted his word, and healing was bestowed upon my nephew. That story unto this day, I will never forget it. And I thought that is what has built me to be what I am today, a community worker. I work in the schools, I helped all the families, everywhere you can think of, I worked. And I inherited that because of the values that was given to my grandmother, from my grandmother. Now at 60, I'm 60 years, so from growing up with her to now, I have been helping people in my community, in my family, in my church, everyone that is in need. I know that God supplies all our needs as He sees it fit. And I trust His word. Because of that one experience, I even trust Him more. The pandemic has changed a lot in what we do at our organization. It has changed the way we do things in our family, in our home, in our workplace, in our community, and the country and nation as a whole. Working with the beneficiaries at FACT, which include parents, children, people living with HIV and AIDS, vulnerable families, vulnerable youths, members of the LGBT community, and indigenous persons. I have found that even though this pandemic has negatively impacted us, there are positive things that came out of it. One is that I found that people are trusting and believing and hoping in God as never before. Example, I'm going to tell you. Our after-school program, many parents could not have afforded basic necessities for the children. Now, most of them are not working, or if one working, they're not working full-time, or they could not have provided needs to the children. When they come to you and you sit with them, talk with them, you counsel them, you find out what is wrong, The hope that I find that we transfer to them is that believing, that trusting God. They always live with a hope that, things will get better. God is in charge and He supplies all our needs as long as you trust Him. That hope that I see in those families, I continue to build on it, continue to encourage them to trust God, because with God all things are possible and He will supply all our needs as He see it fit. Every one of them that came in, I wouldn't say I'm shocked, but I'm happy to say I've realized that they have grown. They have grown in their faith. With whatever religion they are, they have grown in their faith. And because of the faith that I have built over the years, it has helped me to transform it to some of those parents that need, some of those families, some of those beneficiaries that need help at this time. Hope and healing comes from God, the Almighty. That's how I feel it. That's how I see it. That's how I believe it. And it can only be transformed to you if you believe it and if you trust His promises. I have continued to trust God's promises. I've been able to change the way we do things at fact.
Greetings to all of you from Berlin, Germany. My name is Anja Fahrenkamp. I'm the director of Faiths in Tune. Thanks so much to Intersections International for putting together this amazing event with so many wonderful speakers and participants. It's a real honor, especially in times like this, to still take that time and be able to connect and talk about things that matter, especially the role of women and the important role that women play in making this world a better place by building bridges across faiths and promoting harmony throughout the world. So it's a real honor to join this wonderful group of people and talk about these things. So I run this initiative. It's called Faiths in Tune. People from different religions coming together in harmony, musically and spiritually. First of all, I would like to show you a brief video that explains Faiths in Tune. It's just about 60 seconds. So here you go. Hi, I'm Anja Fahrenkamp. I'm the director of Faiths in Tune. We organize interfaith music festivals to bring people together through music. Faiths in Tune dates back to 2012 when we organized the first ever London Interfaith Music Festival at SOAS University at the time. Since then we've moved to the British Museum, we've organized 6 London Interfaith Music Festivals, we've organized 2 festivals in Berlin as well, and we're hoping to continue our work in other cities around the world. Our festivals offer people a safe space where they can get to know each other. The idea is not to promote any particular religion as the desirable or the right one. The idea is to build respect for people who follow certain religion. We make the whole subject of religion accessible, which means that even atheists and agnostics come and listen and at least find a way to access the human being behind the religious label, which I think is really important for people to be able to build sustainable, positive connections and cooperate on solving mutual problems together in the future. Right, so as you could see from the video, our approach at Faiths in Tune is a little bit unique in terms of how we bring people from different religious backgrounds together. Basically, yes, we organize these music festivals, and the idea is to show people behind the religious label. Now, there are several benefits to doing interfaith dialogue through music, of which I'll name a few. Doing dialogue through music, through arts, is actually a great way of bringing together not just your kind of standard Abrahamic religions or more established religions, religions that have scriptures or religions that are institutionalized in a kind of Western fashion, but that actually music festivals allow you to include religions that aren't usually brought to the table. So we're talking about religions that aren't monotheistic. We're talking about religions that are more nature-oriented. We're talking about diasporic African religions that aren't usually included at a lot of interreligious forums. Another benefit is that interreligious music festivals can actually reach people that don't usually have anything to do with religion. They don't affiliate themselves with any particular religion. They don't ascribe any religious attribute or label to themselves. They might call themselves atheists or agnostics or just non-affiliated, and we're able to bring them into the circle of dialogue through our festivals. You know, classic interreligious dialogue forums, they would bring people together, usually people who have certain positions within their religions. So they are kind of elite oriented at the level of religious leaders, which is all really good and really important. But I think that organizing music festivals and using music and art as a medium of communication is a really wonderful way to include people from all social backgrounds within different religions, and make sure that the interreligious efforts actually reach all the way through to the grassroots and actually people from all different backgrounds. This also means making women within religions visible. Now, I'm not trying to generalize and say that all religions are all dominated by men, or that men are the only ones occupying important roles in the religions. Certainly, this doesn't apply to all religions. However, in most religious groups or organizations, and I'm talking especially at the level of institutionalization, there is still a common tendency for important roles to be occupied by men, for decisions to be called by men, and for men to be typically the visible face of any religion. So when you organize music festivals, of course, you bring out the music, you bring out the arts, and that is often both portrayed by men and women, because, of course, as there are men and women practicing any religion, there will also be men and women practicing the music within any religion. So music and dance are a wonderful way to make visible not just everyday members of religions below the leadership level, but it's also about making women and other gender minorities visible within religion. And then maybe I can also add a few words about my role as a woman in interreligious dialogue. So I've actually been working in this field for the last 10 years now, maybe. And a lot of large religions and organizations that are active in interreligious dialogues are still run by men, because male authority is still somewhat persists throughout the field and throughout different organizations. I have had difficulty being taken seriously with my approach, being taken seriously as a woman in this field of work, also because I don't have a leadership role within my religion, so I don't have that religious authority I can call upon. All I have is, my conviction that I can actually make a positive difference. And I have been organizing my music festivals alongside having children. Of actually the first music festival it took place about 1 month after my daughter was born, and I still remember announcing performances and in between running to breastfeed my daughter. So I would say that it had to be me creating that format where I, as a woman and as a working mother, can even make a meaningful contribution, because a lot of formats or organizations created by other people wouldn't actually accommodate me with my woman and with my motherhood in doing that work. And knowing that I can do that work and can make that contribution, I had to basically create the format where I can work and I can call the shots myself. So all the participants who have been at the festivals, they know me, they've seen my children have come actually on the stage with me. And it's also been a way of showing, that us women, we do have meaningful contributions to interreligious dialogue, to promoting harmony. And that means, all of us, including our children, including our families, and also meaning that sometimes we have to set our priorities away from work and our priorities with our families, with our children, to be whole and to be actually really good promoters of peace and harmony. speaking about the COVID pandemic and how it's affected our festivals and how it's affected the women that we work with. Of course, we've basically had to cancel all our festivals this year, which also means that that the artists that actually participate at the festivals, it's not just our events that they haven't been able to participate at. A lot of the artists that perform at our festivals are professional artists who are now basically lacking their main source of income, which is their performative art. Generally speaking, arts already have that difficulty of being recognized as a valuable or worthy part of any kind of dialogue, of any kind of format. And a lot of artists actually have difficulties getting recognized for their work and being offered fair payment. We at our music festivals also have this problem because we're a nonprofit event, and it always depends on whether we can find sponsors who are willing to help us pay the artists fair wages for their performances. So already this is a difficult thing. Now, of course, in light of the pandemic, a lot of the artists are struggling, and I can't really speak for how this differs between men and women. All I can say is that I think, as in any other profession, women will struggle to earn the same kind of wages as men do, and female artists for sure have difficulty being recognized for the value and worth of their art financially and being remunerated in the same way that men and male musicians are. So it's actually it's a really great pleasure that I was able to recommend 3 wonderful artists to this event, namely Rachel Weston, who's a wonderful Jewish musician from the UK. We have Siri Sadanakar, who's a Sikh artist as well from the UK, and Taikya Dana, who's a Buddhist dancer from Myanmar. So yeah, I look forward to hearing more of their performances throughout the event. And again, thanks. I look forward to the discussion with you guys.
Thank you to all of our speakers for sharing such rich and engaging insight from various parts of the world. They spoke on women's empowerment, community, hope, and healing. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce Reverend Brittany Juliet Hanlon, an associate minister at Marble Collegiate Church. She graduated from Howard University in Washington, D.C. with a major in sociology and minor in community development. Upon graduating, Reverend Brittany became an AmeriCorps volunteer, serving as a youth care worker for young women between the ages of 11 and 14 at Mercy Home for Boys and Girls in Chicago. She earned her Master's of Divinity from Vanderbilt Divinity School in 2016. Brittany is very passionate about providing authentic and effective pastoral care to children and youth. A very warm welcome to Brittany Juliet Hanlon.
Hello. Hi, everyone. How are you? That was a beautiful introduction. I so appreciate that. Hello. And I just wanted to say thank you to our panelists for those wonderful explanations and those experiences of what hope looks like. As you can see, hope spans across the human experience. It crosses barriers of racial divisions and socioeconomic lines, and it's the anchor. It really is the anchor of our humanity. Hope is like a divine gift given to us that shows us that God is still in our midst. In the words of Emily Dickinson, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings a tune without words, and it never stops at all. When I was in high school, my absolute favorite Bible verse ever was Jeremiah 29:11. I don't know if that's a millennial thing or if it was just my church's scripture of choice, but we absolutely love that scripture and it really resonated with me. Now, I didn't have the theological tools that I have now to unpack exactly what that scripture meant, but it gave me a sense of peace in the midst of the chaos in my own heart and in my life, essentially. So I'll read that scripture for you. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. I didn't realize at the time that I fell in love with this scripture, that this scripture was actually written during Babylonian exile, where the Israelites were no longer in their homes. They were in a place that was so unfamiliar to them. They had to create this new sense of normal, and they wanted to know where God was. Did God leave them in this situation? Was this God's punishment to them? And I don't know if you are like me, but this pandemic made me feel like I was in an exile of my own. Everything has changed. Our communication styles have changed. Our worship styles have changed. How we live our lives have changed. As Reverend Dudley said, we wait in line 6 feet apart, and that is so different than what it was 10 months ago. I, like the Israelites who were in Babylonian exile, feel a little bit like, where is God in all of this? But see, this scripture shows us that God is calling them to create a new normal. And God is calling us to create a new normal as well. God is calling us to find hope even in the midst of the struggle. God is calling us to believe in the possibilities of our future, even though we don't know what's happening right now, because there's so much uncertainty around us. See, in the Christian faith, right now, we are in the season of Advent, the season of Advent where we watch and wait in anticipation for Christ to show up. And we first light the Advent candle of hope. And I've been thinking, well, why did we light the Advent candle of hope first? And I believe that we light the Advent candle of hope first because hope helps to usher in the light of peace. And hope helps us to usher in the light of joy. And hope helps us to usher in the love and the light of Jesus Christ. Hope in this season of Advent, in this season of uncertainty, is what God gives us to anchor us to know that we are not alone. See, to me, hope is hope is a gift that God gives us. In the same way that God gives us grace, we receive hope in abundance. And it's up to us to cultivate that hope. It's up to us to do some work so that the hope that God has for us is a reality of our lived experiences as we create a beloved community together. In times like this, in order for us to have hope, it takes chutzpah. It takes guts. Because so much of what we see is the darkness. But God gives us hope to illumine our path. Because hope is the light that illumines us to the divine possibilities that God has in store for us. We have not yet seen what we shall be. And if you can see the back of my word wall, it says the best is yet to come. And I believe that in this time and in this season, God is calling us to think and to be and to feel what's happening around us, to look around into the eyes of our neighbors, even if it's just across the TV or just across the screens, or when we are in those lines and we're 6 feet apart, to think about what the other person in front of us might be carrying and to hold them in the love and the light of God. Hope is the conduit to our healing. Hope is the gift that God gives us to repair relationships and fragments in our lives. Hope is the divine gift, the present that we receive each and every day that we open our hearts up to the possibility and to the gift that God gives us. In the words of Brian Courtney Wilson, we watch and we wait, Lord. We anticipate the moment that you choose to appear. We worship and we praise till there's no debate, and we recognize that you are already here. Beloved children of God, God is here. God is here right now. No matter where you are in the world, God is with you. God is not only in your homes, but God is especially in our hearts, illumining the way for us to go forward in the darkness, reminding us of the possibility and the gift that is given to us each day to find hope in the hour, to find joy in the moment, to love unceasingly, and to know that there is peace in this world that surpasses our understanding. God gives us hope. God is our hope. And for that we say, thanks be to God. Amen.
Mingla I'm Tayadna. I'm from Myanmar and currently living in London. I'm here to represent my country and its culture. First of all, my sincerest gratitude to you all. You gave me this great opportunity to participate in this event at Intersection International. From my very young age, I've been fond of Burmese traditional performing arts. Since I moved into London, I have always been looking for the opportunities to present our traditional dances and culture. As in Western countries, only a few people are aware of them. I'm very excited about today's theme, keeping faith, hope, and healing, as it allows me to cast a light on our wonderful Candlelight Dance, a perfect match to the theme, I believe. Let me briefly explain about the origin and meanings of the Candlelight Dance. Looking back on our ancient time, Burmese people have been offering lights to the Buddha. In fact, we Buddhists believe that we will get good merit and peace when we offer lights, water, flowers, and incense. Buddhists believe that good fortune, peace, success, and good health will be achieved by doing meditation and by praying to the Buddha, presenting him offering of lights. In fact, giving offering is considered a performance of good deed and a good action which in return helps heal your heart. This religious practice eventually developed into a precise dance form, today known as Candlelight Dance, Simi Kwa Aga. For those who practice Buddhist religion and follow its beliefs, this dance embodies the act of offering flowers, lights, and water to the Buddha. The Candlelight Dance combines grace and gentleness, qualities characterizing the Burmese idea of femininity, with specific sequential movements embedded within amazing choreographies. Since the time of Burmese kingdom, women have always had a particularly prominent role in Burmese dance. In fact, all the official events taking place in the royal palace used to be performed by women. The Candlelight Dance is often performed during the Myanmar Light Festival, called the Danger. This represents an important nation celebration which falls between October to November. Once again, I would like to thank each and every one of you for this opportunity. And of course, thanks to all those distinguished guests attending this video conference. I hope you will have a pleasant time. I wish that we will all be able to gather our strength and courage to overcome these difficult times, and that the very same thoughts spreading from the offering of lights where cards raise a hope upon the world.
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying their program so far. Thank you again to Hatike for that wonderful performance and overview of Burmese candlelight dancing. So now we're going to begin the live panel discussion with our speakers for today. And as a reminder, I want to let everyone know that you can use the Q&A box for all your questions, and then you can leave any comments that you have in the chat. So I see that all of our panelists here are ready. So let's begin. You've all mentioned such powerful anecdotes about making your voices heard. Zainab, you mentioned civic engagement. Suha, you mentioned the importance of being vulnerable. Annette, you shared a really powerful testimony. And Anna, you shared your work with the music and the arts with us. So I wanted to talk to you all today about the power of storytelling. And my question is, how does storytelling play a role in hope and healing, whether in your personal life or in your work?
I'll start if that's okay. I think that storytelling is really important. I think that it binds us together and it shares a bit of our human experience with one another. For instance, there is a West African Adinkra symbol that is called Sankofa, and Sankofa means it is not foolish to go back and get that which you have forgotten. And I think that when we tell stories, we begin to remember and add real experiences to the things that are going on in the world, and we begin to understand the other person. I think it helps us to eliminate some of the barriers to really understand the heart and soul of the matter, and that we're all connected and all created by this divine source that we call God, or whichever name that we give that divine source.
Beautiful. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share about that?
Yes, I organize music festivals, and music is, of course, not necessarily about speaking or literally telling a story. However, thinking about Chimamanda Adichie's Danger of a Single Story. I don't know if you've seen this. It's a really great TED Talk. She talks about how when you meet someone who's from a different cultural backgrounds, that usually you'll just have a single story, a single narrative in your mind about them. And you actually need multiple diverse stories to be able to relate to someone as a human rather than just that label that you have in your mind. So what we try to do with our music festivals is that we show, first of all, we offer an accessible narrative, an accessible story, something that goes behind just that blanket narrative that we have in our heads through the media. And what we also show is the kind of internal diversity within different religions. So for instance, you'll come to the festival and you'll meet Muslims who practice their Islam in quite different ways, and showing that diversity helps people to kind of capture multiple stories rather than that single story that they know from the media about a certain other religious group. And I think it's really, I think this is helpful for yeah, for kind of connecting with the human being. And this is what we need to actually to heal the rifts in our society that come from having only single stories about others.
Absolutely. And I think stories not only help us express ourselves so we can connect with people, but it definitely helps us understand people in a much deeper way. So thank you. Speaking about connectivity and maybe solidarity, my next question is how each of you managed to foster a sense of community during this time, whether that's community, in your personal lives or maybe community for the groups that you serve in your work.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Hello?
hear you, Annette.
Yeah. Could you repeat it? I had a little technical difficulty. I didn't
Yes,
hear
I just wanted to
everything you
hear
said.
you all speak about community and connection. And I asked how you managed to foster a sense of community during this time of COVID, whether that's looking for a community in your personal lives or helping to foster community for the different communities that you serve and through your work.
Well, like every other one knows at this time, for me, it's strengthening our lives as well as strengthening the community we serve. Because like hope and healing, if we do not have that hope, how would we be able to transform it to the community we serve? I have been able to do it with a team, with a very good team. A team that volunteers, a team that have the community at heart. And like all of us, we have our ups, we have our downs, we have our strengths and our weaknesses. And as a combined team, we are able to help the community in this time of need. It's not a one effort, it was a combined effort.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. A common effort. So I'm going to move over to an audience question. And this question is specifically for Zainab. You mentioned how some may dismiss your work as having been westernized or having had a Western influence. So how do you push back against that narrative?
So yeah, basically what we do is we try to emphasize on the things that makes our message more relatable to traditions. Of course, they're not the traditions that overlap with, let's say, basic notions of human rights, such as equality. So we try and bring, since Kuwait is a Muslim country and the majority living here are Muslims, and the majority, sadly, that accuse us of being westernized are Muslims themselves, we try to relate our message to Islamic principle and mainly social Islamic principles of Islam, such as coexistence, which is a main pillar in Islam. So by doing that, I'm not gonna say like this always succeed, but however, when we push, when we try and push that narrative out of the way and using Islamic teachings, it sometimes does help. Other times, honestly, when the accusation is too ridiculous to be honest, we do what we do best and just like ignore it and it would fade. But whenever we can, we try and bring elements from the society when we try and like challenge whatever accusation, especially when it comes to westernization.
Thank you so much. So I did want to address the fact that we have a wonderfully diverse panel here. We have different religious affiliations, different geographic regions, and of course, different age ranges and experiences. So as we're talking about women's empowerment and specifically women's advocacy, I wanted to ask how you all think we can create a deeper sense of collaboration between younger generations and older generations who are doing this work. And if anyone in the audience also has some thoughts, please feel free to share in the chat as well.
Would it be okay if I jump in and answer this question with everyone?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So basically, I can talk from my personal experience, like the initiative that I'm talking with the platform, the initiative that I'm working with, which is Malawi's List, is basically consisted of like mainly of different generations, like the generations before me who fought for women's rights in Kuwait that we didn't gain until 2005, and my generation. So what I noticed from the older generation, basically their openness, they're really open for hearing our ideas, which can be sometimes to them radical. However, they would sit with us, listen, especially when we integrate technology. For example, we recently had the elections for the General Assembly in Kuwait, which is a big deal, and we were able to, because of COVID, they were more open to actually using technology with our outreach and communication when in like normal circumstances, we would have done it face-to-face with our targeted audience. Also, what I noticed is even when we try and express our feeling in a somehow aggressive manners or undiplomatic manners, we go to them and we talk to them. And when they actually advise us and mentor us, they do it in a way where they make us feel like, okay, we hear your point of view. However, because of our experiences, it is better to approach it from this perspective. Like they're not being condescending, which is a really good thing, because sometimes the older generation can be condescending towards the younger generation, especially when the younger generation thinks they know it all, which, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Any of our other speakers? On that, is that okay? I agree with you, Zainab. Like, I believe that mentorship is very, very important. As a millennial, like, I think that we kind of get a bad rep sometimes, like we're just kind of radical or whatever. But really and truly, I think that we want to have the wisdom of the elders, you know, telling us and like leading us. I also think that sometimes we can get into our own heads and think that like our generation is the only one that's ever had to deal with this, this, and this. And it's kind of insulting to the generations that come before. So really having like an intergenerational dialogue and a real mentorship program, kind of, maybe not like a program necessarily, but a real mentoring space being created so that younger generations and older generations can come together and talk about their experiences so that we can move forward in a direction that everyone is comfortable in. So I'm really like, I know that for me, I need the wisdom of someone who has, you know, lived a little bit longer before I fly off the handle and they're like, I hear you, but maybe you should think about it this way. And that has saved me, I'm sure, countless other experiences that would have not turned out great had they not, you know, ushered in their wisdom. So I think it's really important.
Absolutely. Thank you. And there really is so much to learn from both sides. I think, you know, the experience and wisdom and knowledge of the older generations will be carried forward by the younger generations, as will the movement. So I appreciate that. And before I move on to my next question, maybe Reverend Hanley, you can also sort of speak on this. But I know as we sort of talk about intergenerational, you know, programs and collaboration, if we can maybe address sort of how within a faith context we can sort of foster more collaboration between younger generations and older generations, because I know, you know, young people may be turning to other forms of community outside of faith traditions, and how we can maybe sort of continue to engage both groups within a faith context.
Yeah, I think it's very much part of one of the first questions that you asked about the importance of storytelling. I think that when older generations and the younger generations come together to tell the stories, then we begin to understand the experience of each other. And then that's a way that we can, you know, form those different groups in our faith communities. For instance, as I explained, Sankofa means it is not foolish to go back and get that which you have forgotten. In a previous faith context, I did a summit with older elders of the church and the millennials at this time, and we were talking about Black Lives Matter, and we all had various opinions of it, but when we heard the stories and the experiences of each other, we began to find like a common ground to move forward as a church community and how we wanted to address the issue. So I think being very open and honest about our experiences and really creating and cultivating spaces that we can share those kinds of things honestly, those stories will definitely move us forward in the direction that we want to move in as a holistic group.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to take another question from the audience. And this question is specifically for Anya. What have been some unexpected results that you've experienced from interfaith conversation through art? Are there ever any difficult experiences or people feeling challenged?
So yeah, of course it does happen that that people, so I mean, music events are open to a quite wide audience and anybody could come. And of course you do get people who come specifically to look for trouble and to kind of, because it's a very open forum, you know, you don't have to sit in a circle and talk about your founded knowledge on religion or anything. You can come, there's quite a broad forum, open dialogue. We have like Interfaith community fair that you can go up and talk to religious representatives and just ask them questions. So this one time I had a gentleman, this was at our festival in Berlin, who came at our Interfaith fair. We have quite diverse catering. So we had like some Japanese foods, some vegan Indian food, and some Persian kebab and falafel. So this gentleman comes up to me and says, why don't you have, pork? Because you're doing this festival in Germany and we're all like open and welcoming the others. But then, you know, we shouldn't be suppressed. Like the German favorite food is pork. Why don't you offer pork? And I said, well, you know, maybe Germans also like Muhammad caricatures, but I'm also not going to show those at the festival because I think an interfaith music festival is about trying something new, you know, coming out of your shell a little bit and encountering others and being open to just trying new things and not just always like you don't even have to come out of your comfort zone, but you don't have to, you know, demand you don't have to demand that I cater you to your specific thing, because this is a time for the majority to feel, you know, to mingle with the minorities and kind of be cool about it. So when I drew the parallel to the Muhammad caricature and that it's about respect and just, you know, trying something new, he did shut up about it. And then later on, we had a performance going on by a Muslim Arab group called Naba Inshad. They do beautiful rhythmic music with singing. And I saw the same German angry gentleman he couldn't help like just bouncing his hips to the music and to the rhythm. And then just kind of the music reaching to his core, bypassing his quite angry head. So we do have these experiences. We do get people who come specifically because they feel that this is the kind of place where they can stir trouble and they just kind of want to test the boundaries. And music is a great way to kind of actually bypass that desire and get to where you can connect still with others. So this is the same kind of that he was complaining about, right? Muslims who don't eat pork, but they do make nice music, and he couldn't help notice. So that's just an example.
That was a beautiful story. Thank you. While we're talking about sort of interfaith and intercultural experiences, maybe Suha, you can share some of your insights as an intercultural facilitator and how you found maybe some ways to navigate maybe an initial reluctance that people may have when sort of interacting with people different from themselves.
Yes, well, I have seen that in my experience in dealing with lots of families from different backgrounds, majority from an Arab background. I would say I always try to find something common. Like, for example, for families that come from Syria or for families that are refugees for the second time coming from Palestine, I try to also show them or give them an insight a little bit about Germany's own history, about how Berlin used to be. I try to show them some pictures of how it used to be in the war, for example, so that they can relate. Many of them are sometimes surprised to see how far Germany has come or Berlin has come and how it looks like now. And many of them can't believe how it used to look like. Something else, for example, the similarity between Berlin's wall and other divisions that you can see in other countries. When you read about the history, when I try to explain a little bit about the history, they would also find common grounds to relate. I also try to kind of like focus on activities with children and show them things, for example, from Christmas traditions or like from the Christmas German traditions and having some cookies or doing similar things. And I also sometimes notice, which I find really positive, for schools that are in the intercultural or the multicultural regions of Berlin, you find them also sometimes embracing the Muslim or Arab religious festivals and incorporating them and actually telling the kids that they can go back home, for example, on a day where it's, for example, one of our festivals is called Eid. And, in some of those regions, the teachers would actually tell the children that they can have it off and they can just go and play. So, I mean, sometimes it's positive to see how, kind of like how they both adjust and incorporate some little elements from both their lifestyles. And yeah, I think it's positive to see. But of course, there are some difficulties in the way. But I think we'll see like a change slowly. And yeah, from my experience, I'm just talking about Berlin, where I work currently.
Thank you so much. So now I sort of want to shift gears and talk about creating more spaces and opportunities for women. I think, this conference and these presentations are clear examples of fantastic female leadership. So I wanted to ask all of you, what are some ways that you think we can create more opportunities for women to be leaders specifically, whether that's opportunities in religious institutions, in the intercultural sector, in advocacy work or healing work? What are some ways that we can create more opportunities for real leadership for women?
Maybe I'll jump in and start with that question. So this is whether you speak about a religious community or just a community in general or any kind of institution. So I'm personally from the Jewish community in Berlin. But I also noticed this in my normal daytime job. I work at the German Foreign Ministry. I think that the first thing is that we women actually have to support each other and ask for more female leadership ourselves. I think we don't do this enough, whether this is in a religious community that I, as a woman, say, I want a female rabbi, I think there are lots of women who have so much wisdom to share, and I should ask for this, and I should refuse to go to a synagogue that doesn't allow women to speak in the same place that men do. I'm not generalizing the religion. There are streams within my religion who do promote gender equality, but I think we have to ask for this. Working in the German Foreign Service, the amount of female ambassadors is maybe 1 to 10, or I think the quota is even worse. And often I find that female colleagues, they tend to compete with each other, with other women, because they want to be one of the few who succeed in a man's world, instead of saying, no, we actually have to build alliances and support other women in becoming leaders, and also, criticize men when they push us out and they don't allow us to lead and contribute in the way we are. So I think it starts with ourselves. And that afterwards, we can also build alliances with men. But the first step is women supporting women asking for female leadership.
Absolutely. Do any of our other speakers have some thoughts to share about that?
Yes, I'd like to add. I think what she said, I mean, that's the first thing that came to mind when you first asked the question. I think it's very important that women provide for each other a safe space to talk about their emotions and thoughts and to talk about their struggles, because I think at the end of the day, even if we come from different parts of the world, even if we have, different faiths, I think there's quite a lot of resemblance in our experience as women. And I think when women, for example, can just sit, talk in a transparent way, it would really help uplift them and yes, validate their experience and give them more strength to share and try to maybe connect and seek exactly, and seek the success they're looking for.
Thank you so much, Suha. So I'll ask one final question, then we can go to closing remarks. One of my favorite quotes comes from a book called Ho'oponopono, which is a book that we use here at Intersections. And it's a book on the Hawaiian ritual of forgiveness. And there's a line that says, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. And so I wanted to talk to you and ask about how your faith has informed your self-care practices during this time and what keeps you going in your work.
I can say something about that. For me, of course, I have 3 young children and they're aged 4, 6, and 8. So what definitely keeps me going is wanting to be a great mom to them and wanting to be a great role model for them as well. They are my motivation to get up in the morning, even when I feel like otherwise hiding under the blankets, because this world is so complicated and messy. So they are my greatest motivation, and I also want to raise my daughters to be strong women in this man's world. So that is, for me, a major motivation. And self-care is an important aspect of this, because if I don't look after myself and my well-being, I won't be the best possible mom to them. So I think a lot of moms forget that and feel that they have to sacrifice their own well-being for their kids, but kids actually need healthy, sane moms as well. So it's those aspects that are my main motivation for hope and healing.
Thank you, Anya. We actually have another audience question specifically for you and your work. Do you find non-faith or traditional faith folks to be better allies in your work?
Is that an or question? I think everybody can be an ally. So as the video explained that I was sharing earlier, the festivals aren't about promoting religion as something desirable. I think that everybody believes in something. If they don't believe in God, they still believe in some sort of values. And I think everybody can believe in the ideal of wanting to live together in a diverse society in peace. So I think we should look for our allies everywhere. Within our community, among all spectrums, there are people who want the same thing as us, who have the same goals as us, and also in people who are not affiliated with any religions. I think we have allies there as well. So it's not an or question, either or. It's our allies are everywhere.
Beautiful. So now, if any of you speakers have any closing remarks or final words or anything that you'd like to share with all of us, feel free.
I was just going back on the self-care question, and this is just like my last thought. I was thinking about, I guess, the importance as women to take time for ourselves. I think that we spend a lot of time caring for so many people, and just from my own experience, the imposter syndrome that kind of gets into your head of making you feel like you're not good enough or you don't deserve to be here. And so a prayer that I pray for myself is I ask God, take me out of my head and put me into your spirit. And so that way I'm out of whatever it is in my mind that's going on, and asking God, to put me in God's spirit. And I also say, God, where I lack confidence in myself, may I have confidence in you. Because I feel like without God's guidance, I don't know how I would navigate this world. And so I think taking that time to pray, whatever that practice is, to spend some time alone with God, and to just know that, one, you're not alone, and that these experiences that you are feeling, they have been named, and that this imposter syndrome it's a real feeling, but it's not a true indication of your ability and who God has called you to be. So
beautiful, thank you. Suha, Zainab, or Annette, do you have any final thoughts for us?
Well, just one last thing I'd like to share is the importance of being vulnerable and sharing your emotions. I know I said it in the video, but I can't stress it enough. Just to, to feel okay. And I think I'm saying this to myself before I say it to the other participants, to feel that it's okay to go through ups and downs. It's okay to have difficult times. It's okay to want to share your intimate feelings, or to want to cry, or to feel that it's not my best day today, or that, for example, talking about COVID, about how difficult 2020 has been. I think it's a source of incredible strength to just talk about our feelings unfiltered, without having to tell ourselves we should be stronger than this, or we should to just see it for what it is and just express it the way it is. I think it's very, very important.
Absolutely. Any other final thoughts from our speakers?
Yeah, if I can add one last comment. Sometimes which is from my personal experience, and something that I keep praying for, to be honest. Sometimes I realize what we hope for, whether it's on a personal level or a societal level, it might seem impossible. However, sometimes I came to a realization that this impossibility is because sometimes God has something better for you. And I know it might sound cliche, but I honestly sometimes when I tell it to people, they just laugh, and this is such a cliche, but to me, it's not a cliche, because I know okay, I can work for what I want, but God's know better. So at the end of the day, it is what I want versus what is better for me, and I rather have what is better for me than what I want that might harm me. So that's why I have this certain prayer, whenever I pray, literally what I say is God, you know my deepest desire and what is best for me, so please let them intertwine. And this is how I can wake up every morning and have the hope to achieve whatever I want to achieve. And that's it. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you all so much. This has been such a great conversation, and I'm sure we could have talked about many other things, but this has been so rich and so beautiful. So thank you again for joining us. So without further ado, we're going to move on to the next part of our program, which will be a story of survival. And it will share the story of Inga Ginsberg and be followed by a few performances. So without further ado, we can begin that now. Thank you.
In American and even European culture, the old people are excluded from life. You have to have the chance to be heard. Ich bin die Inge Ginsberg und mein größtes Talent ist nicht singen, sondern überleben. Ich bin 1942 als Flüchtling in die Schweiz gekommen, dann für den amerikanischen Geheimdienst in Lugano eine Villa geführt. Mit dem Leben verbunden bleibt, dass man sich mit jungen Leuten umgibt und immer etwas macht, was man noch nie getan hat. Und ich bitte, ihr dürft mich ruhig auslachen, aber erst, wenn ihr mir es nachmacht. Ja! Kultur und zerstören Natur. Wir stinken im Dreck. Alles Gute und Schöne ist weg. I started out as a Jewish princess in Vienna. Whoever could play the piano was the center of attention at the party. It served me well because I studied music from age 6 to 16. Then I had 4 years of Hitler, of persecution.
and escaping over the mountains where I almost froze to death. My first husband, Otto, and I escaped to Switzerland, where we were refugees. After the war, we came to Hollywood. That is when Otto and I started to compose because we had nothing except our talents. You hear today's Try Again, which was a big hit with Dean Martin.
And that's why you must try again.
After a while, I got very tired of this Hollywood life, which is all fake, and I left. Old age is a beautiful land. There's total freedom. Love affairs are rare. Now it is the wind that caresses my hair, but the scent of flowers, the song of a bird are still there. Old friends are mostly gone. Replace them with the young. They appreciate your stories of times gone by.
Hi everyone, my name is Veronica Savage. I'm the founder and president of a nonprofit organization called United Voices for Peace, fostering a universal culture of peace through music and the arts. We are extremely honored and happy to join this celebration and this event together with our amazing partners, an event focusing on faith, hope and healing, and aiming at raising women's voices with a global perspective. So we're currently joining you from Barcelona and New York in order to honor today the voice of a Holocaust survivor, Inge Ginsberg, who inspired us so much finding healing in music. I'm sitting here together with our peace ambassador, Lucia Caruso, an extremely talented pianist who is going to tell us the story of Inge.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's my honor. My name is Lucia Caruso. I live in New York, where I met Inge originally from Argentina. We adopted each other as granddaughter and grandmother, and we have lived together many years, and I discovered that she was a songwriter, as well as I am a composer and a pianist, and for many years I just listened to her stories until one summer we found her real talent. It's surviving through music.
Beautiful.
Not just singing or doing the music, but surviving through music. So we found these lyrics that were very much like mocking death, and we said, this is very death metal-like. She was interested to know what death metal was like, so we started doing, together with my husband, Pedro da Silva, who is also a guitarist who plays electric guitar, and he had rock experience more than myself. And we really joined and formed this band of death metal where Inge was not only writing the lyrics, but she was rapping on it. And we started when she was only 93 years old.
Amazing and very inspiring. Lucia, can you please introduce the piece that you just played?
Yes, the piece I played is for solo piano and it's called Fairies That Fly in the Darkness. I was inspired by the fact of following the light and hope within this pandemic. I was inside in my apartment, confined in New York, and really, you know, there are those days in which when you really lose hope and everything seems to be dark. So the idea of fantasy and fairies flying, giving you the light to follow, was what inspired the piece.
This is precisely what also United Voices for Peace has been doing during this pandemic. We have promoted the power of the arts, the cathartic power of the arts, to overcome very difficult situations, dark situations, to bring light and hope to the world. We have also been using the power of music to promote integration, union, support and solidarity in order to support one to each other and inspire ourselves by this passion that you musicians have in you to communicate and light and bring joy to our hearts in these trying times.
Well, I think that music is a magic. It's the magic that you cannot really see but feel, and it kind of drives you somewhere. And this is what it was helping Inge to keep living. She said that by doing new songs, it made her feel that she has a purpose to keep living, because after you did everything, after you accomplished everything in life, after you survived the Holocaust and you have a full life, what else is left when you're 96? Doing songs. It was for her the most fun goal to wake up and say, you have musicians waiting for you at the studio. We're waiting for you, and sometimes you will be late. You know, the experience was fun because it was like working at the same time with a child, because when you become really old, it's like, you know, parallel to being a child, except that you have all the experience of life.
Hello everybody, my name is Rachel Weston. I'm coming to you from London. I hope everybody is well and safe. I'm going to sing you some songs from the Jewish liturgical tradition. The first one is from a prayer that we say on Friday night, the evening before the Sabbath. And it asks God to cause us to lie down in peace and to be able to rise again the next morning. And it asks God, the eternal, whatever you understand as God, to spread over us a sukkot shlomecha, a shelter of peace. And the setting is by Max Halfman, a well-known Jewish Polish-American composer, died in 1963, and it's been adapted by me. And the song that will follow that is a prayer for healing, Misha Beirach in Hebrew, and it's by a contemporary Jewish composer who had a huge influence on the American Reform movement, Debbie Friedman. And the prayer is sung very often in services at the point in the service where we mention names of people who might need healing of body or of mind or of spirit.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Die Banayung von Guf, die Banayung von Nefesh, Benaima.
Thank you. It was Max Halfman's Hashkivenu and Debbie Friedman's Misha Beirach. And I'll carry on now with a song that comes from the Hasidic movement, the mystical branch of Judaism that came about in the 1700s in Eastern Europe. The song was adapted by the late Yiddish singer, cultural leader and activist Adrienne Cooper. And the song is in Yiddish, the language of the Eastern European Jews, based on German and mixed with a lot of Eastern European languages and Hebrew, English and Hebrew. So you'll hear the same words in 3 languages. And there's a nigun, which is part of the song, and a nigun is a wordless melody, and I invite you to join me with that in whatever capacity you feel comfortable with.
Wollt ich gehabt koyach, wollt ich gelaufen in die Gassen, wollt ich geschrien Scholem, oi Scholem, Scholem, Scholem. Wollt ich gehabt koyach, wollt ich gelaufen in die Gassen, wollt ich geschrien Scholem, oi Scholem, Scholem, Scholem. If my voice were louder, if my body stronger, I would tear through the streets, crying peace, peace, peace. Yada dai 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 dai, yada dai 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 dai, yada dai 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 dai, yada dai dai dai, yada dai 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 dai dai, yada dai 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 dai, yada dai 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 dai, yada dai 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 dai, yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai dai, yada dai 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 dai, yada dai 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 dai. Shalom, shalom, shalom. ברחוב הייתי צועקת שלום 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 If my voice were louder If my body stronger wollte ich geschwiegen Sholem Hey Sholem 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 Yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da da yada da da yada da 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 yada da 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 Thank you so much for listening, everybody. My name's Rachel Weston, and wishing you all love.
All I can do is take like a deep breath because I feel like I've eaten the biggest meal, appetizer, entree, dessert. It's just, this morning has been amazing, absolutely amazing. Reverend Justin, would you like to start us off as we do feedback?
Yeah, there's so much here. I've been taking some notes, and I don't know where to begin because there's so much here to ponder and to think about. But also, I think some concrete ideas that I've come up with. I think that's part of what we hope from this too, is not just to meet together and to hear the stories, but to actually find some way that we can share this beyond the people here, but also for our organizations and for others, what we might actually concretely do to elevate women's voices and to promote hope and healing. And one of the first things that I think we talked about in the open session was the need for stories and sharing of stories. And I think our teams had planned ahead of time a little bit that we wanted to do this. And actually, I'm going to put an email here in the chat, hopeandhealing@alamanacentre.org. And I think the first thing we'd like for participants to do is to share stories of hope and healing with us. And we'll try to put them out monthly on our websites, correct? I think that was the plan. And so if people would be willing to email that email, we'll work on putting out 1 or 2 stories a month to share that also hopefully give people more inspiration and concrete ideas. Another one that hit me was, I wonder if it might be fruitful for us to work with each other or others to produce an interfaith self-care guide. Culling the best practices of different faith traditions for self-care and putting that together in kind of like a manual or a pamphlet or something to share with others. Because I think that one of the things that I've learned living overseas and living as a Christian in a Muslim majority country is that there are many practices within Islam that I'm envious of, that I wish were more part of my tradition. And so how could we have holy envy of each other and create out of this group and others this manual to share with others. I also really like the idea of music festivals. We have a beautiful opera house here in Oman, and I had a dream at one point in time of bringing an a cappella gospel choir to come and sing at the opera house here, and then also have Omanis who practice a form of art called nasheed, which is an a cappella singing, because the tradition here in Oman, the predominant one is Abadism. And some Abadis believe that the only instrument that is permitted is the human voice, because it's the one that God created. And so to create some sort of musical festival where we can actually explain fully our traditions and the reasons why we sing a certain way could be an interesting kind of project to do. Maybe have them perform somewhere here in Oman, somewhere in New York, somewhere in Europe. I think it'd be an interesting, concrete way forward to do something else as well. And something to share with everybody as well is there's a process that we do here, and we're working on developing further, is called Photovoice, using pictures and having people take pictures of their lives and share pictures and comment on pictures as a way of offering both an understanding of each other's culture, life, and religion. But I think we could easily adapt it to focus on what people find in pictures of hope and healing. Could be another possible program that we could actually host online if people want to take pictures of what gives them hope and what gives them healing, and create an art exhibit of sorts. just some of the ideas that hit me today as I was listening to all these wonderful, wonderful voices. So I'm curious what you heard, and I'm curious what others heard of possible ways forward.
I heard so many things. For example, Annette Jandu, when she spoke of her grandmother and the impact her grandmother had in helping her to become the community worker that she became, my grandmother and subsequently my mother have had such an impact on me and the work that I do. So that really resonated for me. I really enjoyed Zainab's work when she talked about civic engagement as a way to heal from injustice. That really struck me. Civic engagement as a way to heal from injustice, and it's the advocacy that keeps us going. I thought that was really profound. And as we do this very hard work of advocating for vulnerable communities, the self-care piece that came up over and again with Suha and Rachel mentioning that lovely book that we study here at Intersections, that self-care piece is what allows us to show up strong in the world, that like pouring that into ourselves. So it's really God doing the work, regardless of your faith traditions. It is God doing the work. We're not doing it on our own strength. And God will give us ideas and ways forward, but we have to be open to that. So there were so many things. Old age is a beautiful land. I just love Inga. I think she's so fantastic. I mean, I look forward to the next 40 years then, because I thought she was really incredible. But I feel like because we spent 2 days together that we're all friends now. And I think that we should stay in each other's lives. We should create programs together. Invite us to what you're doing. And we want to invite you and know more about what you're doing so that there really is this real collaborative spirit around our work, right? Because I believe, and I think it's really played itself out throughout these past 2 days, that we're more alike than we're different. We may come to the table with different faith traditions, but we come with our humanity. And I think that is what really cements and solidifies us. So I would love for us to find real ways of partnering and coming together to do programming. I love the music festival idea because Anya talked about how you can amplify women when you look to music, right? I thought that was really beautiful. Music and art as a way to include diversity and exposing people to all different types of art and music. I thought that was really fantastic. I think if I was going to look at a sound bite, it was when Reverend Brittany said, it takes chutzpah to have hope. And I was like, all right, I think you're right. 2020 has been such a difficult year for so many people the world over. I think it's going to take a lot of chutzpah, a lot of hope and prayer and healing to show up in a real way, because I believe that 2021 will be much better. But there were many teachable moments this year. There were many teachable moments, right? So I feel like I can just keep talking because the morning, the afternoon, the evening has been so full. But those are the things that are resonating for me. I think now, let's think about that. Let's think about how we're going to actually collect the stories, share the stories. I remember yesterday, Agatha Pratt, formerly of UNICEF, spoke about corn that was grown in fields and how the entire crop had been lost and it was just dust. But that was such an incredible story of hope and resilience, and we can get through this mess. And I think it'll be lovely for people to read those stories and be encouraged as they do their work in different parts of the world. So I'm just really excited. I'm excited by what we saw today. I'm excited by all the people that shared about lifting up the voices of women, about empowering women, about standing in solidarity with women, asking for women leadership. I thought that was really fantastic. Thank you, Anya. I mean, there were just so many beautiful moments today.
For me, I also wonder what it would mean for us to help create safe spaces for women to encourage each other. And whether it's online or in person, online right now, in person later. I think that's really, really important to find those places where people feel like it's either truly neutral or truly safe to come and express their their thoughts and their needs and their desires. And I think those places are rare and holy. And so the more that we can help create those too as well, I think would be an important part of work for all of us to try to find out. Because there are women too that I've encountered that, you know, have no place to be safe, you know, and the safety is done in whispers and in quiet corners, and to find ways to allow them to speak in safety to each other. You know, it doesn't be public, it doesn't have to be out there, but just to find ways, I think would be one of the great benefits, that if we could imagine some way to do that, would be a great ministry.
I think you're right, Reverend Justin, and I feel that vulnerability, I think the vulnerability that comes from this, there's something strengthening about that. There's something really strengthening about that. So it's exciting. It's exciting. So I think we've got a lot of food here that we can sort of unpack a little bit. And then we'll just we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch about ways of actually implementing all of this.
Yeah, and for our participants too who are listening, you know, reach out to us if you have ideas, and if you have ways that you think we can help you, please let us know. And you know, at least on my part, I can't speak for you, Marcia, at Intersections, but we'll do whatever we can in our power to help. You know, we're a small organization, but our desire is, if there's a need, we want to try to meet it if it's in our power. And I'm assuming it's likewise for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right.
So,
Well,
yeah, I mean, one last thing is I just want to thank you and your team, and for everybody for participating and making this a reality under different circumstances than we had hoped for last April. And I'm just so pleased that we were able to do this, and for everybody to be here. So thank you from Oman and from the Amana Center.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are just really grateful to partner in doing this work with you at Amana Center, with FELM. And it's a partnership that really works, because we're really committed to justice. I think collectively, we're all committed to justice and empowering women in ways that make sense, and just really having a deep love and respect for women and how they show up to do this work, wherever they are in their own regions of the world. So we're really grateful for that. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So I think the next thing on our agenda is our multi-faith call to action. And so may I call on the lovely, youthful Reverend from Marble Collegiate Church, Reverend Brittany Hanlon, to give us a call to worship. Reverend Brittany.
Well, hello, everyone, yet again. I guess my call to action is to remember that hope is our opportunity to work together with God to cultivate God's beloved community. So it's time for us to get to work. And if you'll hear yet again, I love lyrics. There's a song by Leanne Womack in my country music phase, and it says, I hope you never lose your sense of wonder. When you get the fill, eat, but always keep that hunger. May you never take a single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. Amen.
Yes, yes, thank you, thank you. I hope we all dance. I hope we all dance. All right, so thank you, Reverend Brittany. All right, Anika, did you join us? Anika Nawabi from Muslim Community Network?
Yes, I am here.
Thank you, Anika.
How are you? And assalamu alaikum to everyone. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to join earlier, but I heard the wonderful recap by Reverend Justin Myers and yourself, Marcia. So thank you for having me here again. And my call to action really stems from a verse from the Quran, which says that, you know, only you yourself can actually be the agent of change in one's life. So we all are agents of change, and we have the ability to make, whether these changes are small or big, we have an ability to make a difference, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of others. Hence, the call to action is to get closer to faith. In order to become closer to faith, that we are able to be in the service of others. From the Muslim Community Network in New York City, just some very practical calls to action are, to help volunteer in our Interfaith soup kitchen, that we host every month, which is a way for us to give back to the community. We feed around 100 individuals every month through our Interfaith soup kitchen at the Church of Holy Trinity. We give back by convening thought leaders, by convening community members to come in discussion and talk about our collective civic duties and our collective civic rights, essentially. These are some of the calls to action I can ask for. But I guess what I ultimately want to say is that we ourselves are our own agents of change. And with these amazing and marvelous group of individuals that we've met over the last 2 days, as you said, Marcia, find ways of collaboration. Marcia, find ways of collaboration, find ways of friendship between faiths, and these are ways that we can collectively make a better world. And so that is my hope and prayer for everyone in the world.
Thank you. And it is a beautiful hope and prayer for the entire world. Thank you. Thank you, Anika. All right, Emma? Emma Wright. Is Emma on, Justin? Oh, great. Oh, it's so nice to see you. It's so nice to see you. Thank you for joining us, Emma.
Nice to see you too. I'm so happy to be here, and assalamu alaikum to everyone. I'm Emma, and I spent last year as a Christian woman living in Muscat, Oman, and working with Amana Centre with Justin and everyone. And I think right now, as I've been listening today, I keep thinking about how as women, we are so commonly asked to care for the needs of others, often carrying the emotional load for our families, for our communities. And the COVID-19 pandemic has only highlighted that even more. And it's exhausting. And I don't know about you, but I am tired and I'm weary. But the pandemic continues. And so the work continues, the peace building, the work to empower women, all of it, the to-do lists are never ending. And yet, as so many of you have demonstrated today, there is hope in God, in our communities, in the women on this call. And during my time in Oman, I was living far away from my family, and especially during COVID lockdowns, feeling isolated. But even when there was only connection on WhatsApp and Zoom, my best friend Sumaya, an Omani Muslim woman, and I were able to sustain each other and keep our faith alive. And it was her faith in Allah that was sustaining my faith in Allah, her daily prayers that were sustaining my daily prayers. And even now, after I've returned to the US to start divinity school, she's helping me to be the best Christian I can be. And I hope I'm continuing to help her be the best Muslim she can be. So my call to action for us as we move out into the world from this incredible event and incredible call is that we as women support each other across faith traditions. So you can contact your local mosque or church or synagogue or temple and look for those opportunities to build friendships in unexpected places. And together we can try to find that balance between caring for ourselves and fighting for justice. And the balance that works for me might not be the balance that works for you, because we all are unique and all powerful in our own ways. But we must lift up our voices and share our stories. We must rest and laugh and sing and hope. And I am just so grateful for all of the voices and stories and gifts that have been shared on this call. So thank you to everyone. It's been a privilege to join, and I know that my faith and hope have been strengthened during this event.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma. We're going to hear from, many people have called her Rabbi Tehillah. She's not yet a rabbi, but she is an incredible Jewish educator. And I believe that there is a prophetic word said. So maybe rabbi will be her title one day. But next we'll hear from Tehillah Eisenstadt, and then that'll be followed by Dr. Pilar Jennings.
300 years ago, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, a spiritual leader, shared the following truth. The day you were born was the day that God decided that the world could no longer continue to exist without you. We're living in a pandemic. Lives get really small. We can feel really lonely and sometimes useless. When I feel that way, I ask myself, why am I here? Why did God call my soul down? What am I supposed to be doing right now? And I know it is not just for me to be here alone, figuring it out for myself. If the world needed me, there's something that I need to do. There's something that you need to do. But how do we get from these narrow spaces where we just keep seeing ourselves in the same four walls? How do we get to a more expansive place? We're left an image from the Tanakh, from the Torah, of Jacob's ladder. When Jacob was very much alone, was feeling very frightened. It was night, and he only had energy to find one rock to make a pillow for his head. And when he fell asleep, he zoomed out of his fear and his loneliness, and he found angels riding up and down the ladder, and he found Adonai, who called to him and said, I am God. I've been with you this whole time. I've been with your parents, and I will be with your children and your children's children. You're not alone. You need to get up, and you need to keep going. And Jacob woke, and he wasn't alone. And he said, how holy is this place? It's always been holy. And I didn't know. But now I know. I know that this place is Beit Elohim. I know this is the house of God. Wherever your pillow and wherever your head rests, that is also Beit Elohim. That is the house of God. And you are called from that house of God to do what God brought you here to do. And you probably can't, you probably shouldn't be doing it alone. You can zoom out. You can call on other people to help you do and find the work that you were meant to do, and do and find the work that they were meant to do together. Good luck.
It is my abiding hope as a woman, as a human being, and as a Buddhist, that women everywhere find the needed causes and conditions that reflect their depth of knowing, their wisdom, their compassion. And it is my hope that the women who have suffered the shadow of this world are cared for with decency, respect, and patience, so that they may recover their sense of well-being, and they may come to genuinely trust in their resilience. I wish for a time of healing, so that the women who have shouldered the burden of this pandemic have some opportunity for rest, for needed reflection, and for growing trust that their suffering can be better understood by those who have not suffered in the same way. And I wish for a time in which all women across this globe deeply question any internalized feelings of powerlessness, so that our capacity for leadership, for insight, and clarity of mind may come forward to usher this world toward a time in which women at the helm in all sectors of life are welcomed, celebrated, and anticipated. May it be so.
I'm calling for women to rest. I'm calling for you to find the deep reservoir of resilience that is your most urgent resistance. It is your most active and powerful way of making a difference in the world. And with that, I will finish the portion of the poem that I began yesterday, which is from 1927. Max Ehrmann is the writer, and it's called Desiderata. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune, but do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive God to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations. In the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful and strive to be happy. And these words are just akin to the words of the prophet Jeremiah, who tells us to build and plant, who tells us that even in deportation, even in captivity, even in complete collapse, God is still with us. Thank you, everyone, for participating in these 2 days of rich and full and beautiful sharing, helping us to keep the faith and seeing the power and potential of hope and healing.
There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Sometimes I feel discouraged and think my work's in vain, but then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. If you can preach like Peter, if you can pray like Paul, you can tell the love of Jesus who died to save us all. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul.
Thank you all so much for joining us for our first virtual program in partnership with the Amana Centre and FELM. During these past few days, we heard from speakers and participants from all over the world, including Africa, North America, the Middle East, Asia, Europe, and South America. It has been an enormous pleasure hearing your stories, sharing each other's knowledge, and being uplifted by incredible musical performances. We hope you all enjoyed this event. We are excited to create a multi-faith, intergenerational, and diverse network of women who are engaged in hope, healing, and peace building. We invite you to join us, keep in touch, and continue to spread love and light into the world. Thank you all.